After tense and dramatic testimony filled with more than a few moments that would make any one of us blush, the Trump election interference hush money trial today got down to brass tacks. A flood of evidence, phone call data, texts, tweets, documents that cast new light on the mechanics of the scheme to silence Stormy Daniels and conceal the hush money payments. They set the stage for one star witness and quite possibly the appearance of another witness who is not yet on anyone's list to testify. Read out loud in court today, messages sent between Stormy Daniels' publicist, Gina Rodriguez, and the National Enquirer editor, Dylan Howard. Now, these text messages show that those two were in talks for months about buying Stormy Daniels' story. Here are some of those text messages. On October 7th, 2016, April 7th, 2016, Rodriguez texts, but Stormy was his mistress. Dylan Howard texts back, I bet she was. Can you email me what you have on that? A few months later, this exchange from June 28th, 2016, Gina Rodriguez texts, she doesn't want to go on the record about it, but wants to tell the story through a source. She had sex with him. She wants $100,000. Dylan Howard at the Enquirer asks, once or ongoing relationship? Gina Rodriguez writes back, a couple times. And he promised her a condo and a spot on Celebrity Apprentice. Now, these text messages show that Gina Rodriguez was being bargained down from an initial ask of $250,000. But as David Pecker testified, he reached the point with this deal where he said, quote, I'm not a bank, and refused to do it, which left these negotiations in the hands of Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. So on October 17th, 2016, Gina Rodriguez texts, we're not doing the deal, the Trump deal. Dylan Howard replies, Keith gave me a heads up what happened. Gina Rodriguez says they didn't pay when they said they would, and they keep trying to buy more time. Daily Mail wants it bad, and we're doing it. The foot dragging by Michael Cohen and Donald Trump ends a couple days later on October 27th. The last text message showed today from Dylan Howard the day before that says, quote, good news I hear. Prosecutors today also got to the actual charges at hand, those 34 felony counts for falsifying business records for the first time in the trial. The DA's office put each one of the allegedly false records on display for the jury. There were 11 invoices, 11 vouchers, and 12 checks, all relating to the reimbursement of one of their next witnesses. Multiple sources telling NBC that Michael Cohen will take the stand Monday for what is expected to be several days of dramatic testimony. Also brought up in court today, one person who looms over this case, former Trump org CFO Allen Weisselberg. He signed off on the plan to reimburse Michael Cohen, also the amounts that he would be reimbursed. We saw his handwritten notes on documents entered into evidence this week. Where is he? Well, he's currently serving jail time at Rikers for perjury. From NBC News is reporting on this. The parties discussed whether Weisselberg's severance agreement should come into evidence. Under that agreement, the Trump org is obligated to pay him 3 installments by end of the year. And in exchange, he may not disparage any of its officers, director, or employees. Prosecutors say they want to use it to explain why Allen Weisselberg is not a witness. NBC News reports this, quote, as a solution, the judge notes that it would be helpful to him in resolving this if some efforts were made to secure Weisselberg's appearance. A mountain of hard evidence in the form of documents and some pretty intriguing discussions over witnesses still to come as a prelude to a potentially explosive week of testimony next week. It's where we start today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends all at the table today. New York Times investigative reporter Suzanne Craig is back, plus MSNBC legal analyst and a former criminal division deputy chief at SDNY, Christy Greenberg, is back. Back from the cold, hard streets of Lower Manhattan, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard is at the table, and the host of Politics Nation right here on MSNBC, the president of the National Action Network, the Reverend Al Sharpton's here. I'll start with the question. How mad is Trump? I mean, you know him.
He's furious. I mean, I think if you looked at his facial expression leaving, let's put it this way. I don't think Melania's going to have a great Mother's Day. He'll be kicking walls all weekend because he really saw, I think, how really in a dangerous position he's in now. The times that I've known Donald Trump, whether we were fighting or whether he was trying to act like he was a Democrat, he's delusional. And the look I saw in his face today was all of a sudden the delusions are kind of melting, and he realized this could be real trouble. I think he'll be putting a lot of pressure on those lawyers. He'll be coming up with a different theory every second that they ought to try. It's going to be a very busy weekend for Donald Trump because he is, I think, a man sinking, and he's seeing it, and he's going to try every angle he can between now and when they reconvene next week.
I feel like it's a smear to Shakespeare to describe Cohen versus Trump as Shakespearean. But in this element, it feels like it might be. What Trump will want to do and say about Cohen could put Trump where Michael Cohen spent time, in prison. These two men, so interconnected. Cohen took care of Trump's dirtiest deeds. He did it with seeming enthusiasm for a while. He and Weisselberg, sort of two of the, one we know is a witness that's a coming attraction. The other is a giant question mark. Two of the, not the only men, but two men who've gone to prison for Donald Trump.
Imagine your frenemy, right? Most folks got one of those, but just take it to the next level of, the White House on the line, going to prison on the line, one man already having served time in prison for the crimes that he pled guilty to committing on behalf of that other friend / now enemy. I mean, that's what's on the line here. And when Donald Trump is literally going inside of the courthouse here today, he sees a TikTok last night from Michael Cohen that includes Michael Cohen wearing a shirt of Donald Trump behind bars, which led to an irate Donald Trump and an attorney, Todd Blanche, today saying that Michael Cohen should be directed to not speak about this trial at all because Donald Trump currently has the gag order placed on top of him. He's already violated it 10 times, a couple of those for attacking Michael Cohen. But this is a moment here where he wants to go out and publicly defend himself. And this is the same argument we saw at the end of court yesterday, but about Stormy Daniels. Todd Blanche making the case for Donald Trump, that Donald Trump should be able to attack her because she's a witness that is now off the stand. But as Stormy Daniels tweeted last night, quote, real men respond to testimony by being sworn in and taking the stand in court. Oh, wait, never mind. Michael Cohen could have that response back in return. That is an outstanding question. Would Donald Trump actually take that opportunity to go on the attack against Michael Cohen in the place where right now he would legally be able to do that, which is in the courtroom? What's
so interesting to me about Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen is in 2016, which is what this whole trial has brought me back to in every way, 14 or 15 Republicans failed to ever understand how to get under his skin. Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen can do it as easily as the rest of us exhale. I mean, he is so triggered by the two of them. What are you expecting as someone who's covered all these players on Monday?
I'm wondering when Donald Trump walks into that courtroom and Michael Cohen is there with him there. This is a man who has already publicly testified up on Capitol Hill, whether it be on his TikTok, whether it be on his podcast. He has talked so extensively about him. But Donald Trump has struggled to respond. As you just said, he's struggled to respond to Stormy Daniels' allegations, right? It's not like he's coming fact for fact. And the same thing is with Michael Cohen. And so for him, will he be able to manage over the course of the week, knowing that testimony will be coming out Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday? Will he be able to truly sit there, and will his attorneys be able to get him to resist demanding that he take the stand, whether it is legally calculated or not?
His lack of impulse control in all of this is remarkable. He went out on Twitter and said, I'm not going to say anything else. And then has continued time after time.
Which one are you talking about?
Michael Cohen.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It's hard sometimes to differentiate the two. And
because frankly, neither of them has stopped.
And then he was out on a TikTok live video with a shirt of Donald Trump behind bars that Donald Trump's lawyers were in court complaining about today, and there was this just remarkable exchange about it, and even the government lawyer Joshua Steinglass caught up, and he said, we can't control the witnesses, we don't have the power to do it. And the judge actually said to him, you should tell them, you need to talk to them. He understands that he can't control them, but the message has got to go out. Enough's enough. Because Donald Trump, he wants to respond in a political format. He's having to realize right now the constraints of this courtroom, but it's very frustrating, I think, particularly when seeing what Michael Cohen is doing time and time again. After Michael Cohen saying he's not going to do it, he continues to poke the bear. And this is what's coming into court on Monday. This is what, it's going to be interesting because I saw Michael Cohen in the civil setting, and I actually thought, in most respects, he was a very good witness. But on Monday, what goes to the heart of this is what he's going to be testifying about. This is the hush money payment that he paid. He has done time for this, and I think it's just a whole new ballgame on Monday as to how this unfolds.
But we should not forget that Michael Cohen, despite all of the baggage, is really emotionally very, very connected to seeing some justice here as he sees it. And you may remember he called me and I had prayer with him before he went to jail. This man went to jail in part on these charges.
No, Reverend, I agree with you, but I think if he's that emotionally invested, he's got to show some restraint.
He's got to show some restraint. You cannot blow it.
Right, because he's going to get blamed for it.
At the end of the road that you wanted to see something, don't blow it. And if I were to talk to him this weekend, I'm not calling him, but he's called me as a minister, I would just tell him, don't blow it. Whatever you said, if it is true, you have an opportunity now for truth to become clear in front of a jury.
Right.
Don't blow it. And I think that his emotions are tied up. I mean, I talked to his son while he was in jail. The man suffered. But don't make it having been suffering for nothing. Now is the time for you to see justice done as you tell us the story of what happened.